Who are we voting for? That's the talk of the town. That's every headline you see. Are you voting red or are you voting blue? Well, it's not as simple. And this is the reality.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى
طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب
مدينة القدس العربية.
I'll start this off by saying that I'm not here to give you political advice. That's not my job. I'm just curious. I'm curious on our position as Arab Americans living here during a presidential election. When it comes to America's internal policy, when it comes to healthcare, taxes, housing, student loans, there's always room for discussion and conversation. We live here at the end of the day. I mean, there's things that I like, that I'd like to push for. There's other things that interest you more, that you'd like to push for. We come from a conservative background. A lot of us, and I think it's safe to say that most of us, don't like the extreme direction that liberals take on many issues, especially when it comes to stuff like gender ideology and how hardcore they are when it comes to these issues. But again, at the same time, we're the minority, and the Democrats are usually the party that like to include us and mention us in their plans. So we have become known to lean more in that direction. So you could already see the tear here between blue, the left, the Democrats, and red, the Republicans. But to top it all off, and this is for people who live here in Dearborn, in Michigan, we live in a swing state. A swing state, for those who don't know, is a state that could go either way when it comes to an election. The Republicans can't guarantee it, and neither can the Democrats. It literally could swing either way. So it just so happens that this swing state in particular has the largest population of Arabs in America. So if you live here and you think that your vote doesn't matter, in reality, it does. Michigan was the state that won the election for Joe Biden in 2020. And Dearborn in particular overwhelmingly supported Joe Biden in 2020 in that election. By the way, just in case you forgot, it was won on very slim margins. So now you and me who used to think that our voices don't matter and they won't change a thing, actually turned out to be a very big deal in the grand scheme of things. What I'm saying is that you and me, the conservatives who want to do whatever they can to preserve their culture and the heritage of their parents and grandparents, that don't want their kids to be indoctrinated by the extreme liberal ideologies, and at the same time want all the benefits that these same liberals promise to give our small minority community. And we also live in one of the most important cities when it comes to presidential elections. So here's the tear. What do you do? There's actually one part of your decision-making process that you also have to keep in mind. You live in America. We live in America, a country that has its hands dipped in other countries all over the world, whether it be directly or indirectly. And a lot of these countries are our home countries. And you know that those countries that I'm talking about are the countries that my father and your father and his grandfather did everything they could to escape, to find you and me a better life. The unfortunate part about that is America doesn't have its hand dipped in our countries positively. Their so-called allies are behind the killing of our families, the killing of our friends, and the killing of our neighbors. That's what we experienced firsthand this past election. In our pursuit for voting for the lesser of two evils, that's what everyone was saying, vote for the lesser of two evils. We got a clearly incompetent president through our community's votes, and that invoked one of the most heartbreaking, cruel, just shattering wars that we've ever seen during our lifetime. And I know that a lot of people are not going to be happy when this is said, but it has to be said. The blood of those lives that were lost, that are still being lost, can be traced back to our community. Of course, I'm not saying that if you voted for Joe Biden in 2020, that means you're the sole reason that this war happened. But I just have to remind you that the extreme push of the Arab community to vote for Joe Biden was clearly not the right decision to do. We have to say these things. If you voted for Joe Biden, On a personal level, you have to sit with yourself and you have to admit to yourself that you made a big mistake and you'll have to learn from it. In the same breath, I'm not saying that voting for Trump would have changed anything about what's happening right now, or it would have been better per se. All I'm saying is the lesser of two evils was not actually the lesser of two evils. That wasn't true. That lesser of two evils is still behind are people getting bombed during me recording this or during you listening to this. Now you might think to yourself that that's true. That happened, and now we know what to do. We're just not going to vote anymore because they're all evil and they're all liars and we can never trust them. At least that's what the response was on Instagram when I asked you about your thoughts on the election. A lot of people were like, some people were like, we voted for Joe Biden. We're not doing this mistake again, not voting. The overwhelming majority was leaning towards not voting this upcoming election. Some people said Republican. Some people still think that the Democratic Party is the lesser of two evils and they would go for them again. And the thing is, you're right. They're very manipulative. They're masters. They mastered using our weak spots to make us feel like we want to get behind them. They have this very good way of speaking to where we feel that they are on our side and that they have our community's best interest. If you watch the debate between Trump and Kamala the other day, you can tell that it was very weird. It was odd. In theory, these are the best two candidates America has to offer, right? It was like an hour of name calling and lies on both sides. Like I listened to the debate and I went to see what other people were saying. And most of what Trump said was lies. And a lot of what Kamala said was lies. So if you detach the names from that conversation, just take it as a regular conversation. You take the names out and you take it being a presidential election out. It would actually be a conversation or an argument between two teenagers. That's the best that America has to offer the world. But is the solution not to vote? I don't think so. I think it's very important for us to vote. We live in this country and we want our community to have a say in what happens. We want to influence policy, whether it be in America, where we live, or policy that affects our family back home. We have these conversations between each other like, man, I wish we could do this in America, or I wish this country would accommodate like this particular aspect of our faith or culture. And I'll give you a small example. Eid al-Fitr, which is the Eid that we celebrate right after Shahr Ramadan ends. Here in Dearborn, it's a paid holiday for the city. So the city's closed, actually. City buildings, city facilities are actually closed. It's like that here and in a neighboring city here also called Hamtramck. And why is that? Arab voices were loud. Arab mayors were voted in. Arab Muslim mayors were voted in. And they made that change. Now, it's a very small change. You know, it's something like you could say, like, is it even that significant? It's nice to know that the whole city is closed for that day because it pertains to my faith. That's how it was back home. In Lebanon, Eid al-Fitr, everything was closed. Now, mind you, I agree, this is a very small example, but take that example and apply it on a bigger scale throughout the whole country. Our voices are loud and they should be taken seriously. A lot of us are planning to live here for the rest of our lives. And when you live here for the rest of your life, that means your children and your grandchildren potentially are going to live here for the rest of theirs. Do we want to live in a place where we increase in numbers, like physically increase in numbers, but our voices keep getting shunned and no one takes our community seriously because we don't vote or because they think we don't matter? We've proved that our people are special and we can make it to the biggest stages in the world. But in the same breath, we also have to make sure that our people's voices are heard. And that won't happen if we don't vote. Now, Jaafar, the golden question. You've been going on this rant. What are you going to do? which party are you going to vote for? And I think the answer is just as complicated as the whole situation that I just laid out for you. Like, I know it's a must. I know technically I should vote because that means that me and my community have a voice. But I know for a fact that the Democratic Party does not represent me or my beliefs, and I won't be voting for them, no matter how many endorsements they get from so-called Arab leaders in our communities, no matter how much they seem to care about the plight of the Palestinians a couple weeks before the election, and a couple weeks before that big decision, knowing that our community has the power to put them in office. When they start caring a couple weeks before the election, that doesn't sit well with me. So it has to be Republican, right? And absolutely not. I'm conservative, and I absolutely want to continue being that way. But drooling over Israel is a deal breaker in my books. I hear a lot of people say it's only the foreign policy that we're against. But it's like, it's only the foreign policy, like the same foreign policy that destroyed our people's livelihoods. Only 50,000 people gone. Only, like, it's billions in military aid to fund that war. And you have the audacity to say only. The reality is that I am as confused as you are. I don't know what to do yet. I'm sharing this with you because I also hope with all my heart that you're as confused as I am. I hope that the fake compassion that the left show doesn't get to your head, and you're not planning to vote for the right just because the left did a very bad job this last election. Like, we have to be thinkers, people who discuss ideas and solutions. Like, conforming to one side because it's convenient shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be what we do as a community. Well, we're responsible for the actions that we do. People who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 should feel a sense of responsibility for what happened, for what's happening right now. And I'll say it, I've never voted before, ever. But I'm starting to understand why it's important. Like, I know for a fact the directions that I don't want to take. Like, we have to think of our people before we think of ourselves. I'm planning to have different discussions about politics and the upcoming elections moving forward. I want to learn more. I want us as a community to be more knowledgeable and strong. I would love for us to have a voice on a national level. I would love for us to sway the policy or like pressure, have actual pressure on policy, whether it be for us here or for our people back home. I would love to hear your thought process and how you're thinking, and if you're going through that same tear in your head. Drop it down below. Drop your thoughts down below. And this is a place for discussion as well. If you disagree with what I'm saying, if you think that the Democratic Party did something to convince you of why you should vote for them, drop it down below. Let me know. If you think the Republicans are the way to go, also let me know. And we can have this conversation. But conforming to what's available just because it's available, or just because that's the only thing that's available, does not sit well with me. And I don't think it should sit well with you either. I'm really looking forward to hear what you guys think. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't yet. It'll help out the channel a lot, and I'll see you next Monday.